Another episode of Mental Health Monday. We have another special guest in the building, my brother Tyrell. So,
Hey,
a couple weeks ago, my friend Tamia was like, "Hey, you should get Tyrell on." And if you know his relationship, we're probably usually arguing 95% of the time. But during those 5%, we usually have a good conversation. And my brother Tyrell had brought up a topic for us that he wants to introduce.
oh, I do. I don't know. I don't know what this topic you're talking about.
Oh,
But
really?
this being a mental health Monday, and he asked me to be on, and it was pick a straw out of the hat type of situation. I'm like, hey, let's talk about the sexuality issues and mental health because
Yeah.
I'm bi and black and a man, and there are a few things growing up that you learn about what it is to be a man, and yeah.
So just I guess in your discovery of your sexuality, you grow up, learning that, men are tough, men, we're conquerors, we're trying to sleep with as many women, whatever toxic, not toxic, but whatever,
We don't show emotions.
yeah, no show emotions, all the things that, you can think of being a black male in the household. And I guess now that you were learning more about yourself, that's starting to conflict with what you learned previously.
Oh yeah, like well, the whole not showing emotions and whatnot, and I mean, I'm not the most emotionally intelligent person, as y'all
Yeah.
would already know, but I still have feelings too. And
Mhm.
so when you're always told you act tough, be strong, this, that, and the third, me being a large person, a quiet person, I'm like, all right, I just won't feel then. And that's a whole hell of a lot of emotional turmoil, but that's getting dealt with over the years.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
also, if you show any emotions, that's effeminate. That's what women do. What are you, sweet or something?
Oh man, that's literally like my whole childhood growing up. I was a very sensitive kid. Like I always just had a bunch of emotions, and even just the thought of like talking your feelings out. I always talk to my friend Brandon about this. Just even just men talking about their feelings is just kind of frowned upon. Like you said, we're always told to just suck it up and just put your feelings to the side. And nobody cares about men's feelings. Things like
Yeah, man. Like it's bad because then you're told that all these soft things aren't what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to be strong, and that's how you start dealing with situations. You show a strength. I'm man. I'm strong. I'm powerful. I will move this situation the way I want it. And I'm like, yeah, that's not exactly the healthiest way to deal with these things because that's not always the right way to deal with these things.
what things are you talking about?
Uh, I didn't have an example off the top of my head. It's just like, oh, I'm drawing a blank. Yay. Yeah, it's not because I'm doing this whole thing. It's because this always happens. They tend to like treat them as if they're lesser because the feminine form that's weak. That's something you shouldn't aspire to be as a man, and so they put the man above the other, and that it's kind of yikes. That's how you get domestic violence. That's how you get all this gaslighting and stuff that happens because the weak isn't. That's not it. That's not how you're supposed to be. Be it females or other men who are more emotionally stable, emotionally mature. And then you get this mismatched world of adults that are just not treating each other right because men don't feel pain, men don't feel emotions. If men feel emotions, you ain't shit.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely again I definitely have dealt with that um just growing up, even in our household. I feel like there wasn't many forms of wasn't many avenues to deal with my emotions. You know, I remember I used to hide because I was just so frustrated and so annoyed, and like I wanted to run away from home and whatnot because I didn't know how to deal with my feelings and just never.
Hmm.
You had five boys in the household, like who was supposed to teach us how to, be emotionally intelligent. You know, it wasn't until my junior year of college that I even went to therapy. You know, so I couldn't imagine just not really having that and kind of having to learn on the fly on my own as an adult. You know.
Yeah, the five boys thing is another fun thing because, as you said, you look up to your older brothers for guidance and whatnot, and then as an older brother, I look up to my older brothers for guidance, and then so on and so on until you get to the oldest brother who looked up to who for guidance, and like parts of it could be like Uncle Junior for guidance, which one of them their toxic masculinity things. That's one of them.
Oh, man.
That's one of those good old role model for, oh, you better not be anything but straight.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. And just man,
Ain't no child of mine's gonna be sweet.
yeah, yeah, and just again, just reinforcing that idea that now that you are, or not that you are, but now that you have recognized that you are by just dealing with
Hmm.
those type of people.
Just unraveling it all. Because when I see somebody attractive, I'm like, ooh, that's a pretty face. When
Mhm.
it's a girl, nothing, no issue. When it's a woman, there's no issue, nothing that's status quo. But when I find a man attractive, one of my instincts is to reel back and be repulsed for a second and then realize that, oh, wait, that's because of all the years of built up, stigmatisms of homophobia and shit that I'm like, wait, I'm allowed to find this person attractive because they are attractive. There's nothing wrong with being attracted to a more masculine form. And that's been a lot of fun to unravel. The quarantine kind of sped run that because when you don't see people, when you shift your social circles to something a little more online and shift into more free and open thinkers and discuss more and more with different people from different cultures and whatnot, you see a lot of commonalities and similarities, but you also start to ask the questions of why is this bad? Why have we been taught that this is bad? And start working through things slowly. Thankfully, I've been able to talk my way through this with friends and whatnot, and I hadn't found the need for a psychiatrist,
Psychiatrist, counselor, therapist. Honestly,
counselor, therapist.
I'm
Yeah.
confused on like which one's which at this point too. No, yeah, I hear that, and I definitely think some of my friends, I'm a thinker, and I've always been just curious. Like I'm not necessarily attracted to the male species, but the thought pops into my head, and I'm just like, what would that even look like? Like, because I'm just curious. Like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And just I have friends like my friend Josephine. She is a I don't necessarily know what her sexuality is, so I'm not going to assume anything.
Mm-hmm.
But she's very open to that world, and just being able to have conversations with her and
Oh
just
yeah.
her about like, yo, like, what do you think this means? And just being able to have that outlet to talk about like my feelings around my sexuality without being judged that I am.
Mm-hmm.
If I I couldn't imagine talking to one of my guy friends and being like, yo, like, have you ever thought about sucking a dick? Like, not even on some like, not even on some like, I want to do it, but just like, I really
Yeah.
think about
Yeah.
stuff. And I just think like, yo, like that just, I don't think I would want something like that in my face, like around my face. Like, I'm good. But I
That's
think,
fair.
but I think for me, I think I'm comfortable with my sexuality. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no man could ever, get me out of my drawers. Like I
Mm-hmm.
am attracted to women. So like I am comfortable enough
Oh,
to like
bro.
think about these things, but I'm also comfortable enough with my friend Josephine, to talk about them. And so I definitely
Yeah.
understand, being able to have friends around you that are open enough to even just explore this
Oh,
conversation,
yeah.
because it doesn't happen, like it doesn't come out of your head and like into real life, and you don't start to talk about like just being able to be who you are without
Mhm.
those type of people in your circle to just talk about it and just have that open mindset about it.
Oh, yeah. Being able to talk to people about it really, really does help. And that's another thing that I had to relearn how to do, because in the past we weren't allowed to talk to people about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Just
So
um, like it's always a weird, not weird topic. I don't want to make things. I don't
it
want
has
to
been a social.
pathologize anything, but like
It's
just
been
the
a
social.
socially unacceptable topic to talk about.
Mhm.
Because why do we need to talk about it when we're all supposed to be straight? We're straight, right? We're straight. We're straight, right? Like when you have that shoved down your throat for so many years, like think about it. It's 10 years, 10, 15, 20, 25, all these years. That's a long time to have the same thing talked about and reinforced over and over again. And people ask, why does it take so long for you to like start the process of healing and fixing? It's like, that's a lot of fucking shit that I have to like scrape away at over time. Like
Yeah,
I am comfortable with who I am, but I have a lot of unlearning and reconnecting and re-establishing to do in my brain about what is okay. And so yeah, slaves. You know what they used to do to punish the slaves?
what did they used to do, Tyrell?
They would fuck their wives and fuck them. Like they would sodomize black men. And if you enjoy the sodomization, the what the white man did to you, then to be gay, you would be more okay with what they're doing. And so it's been driven into our culture that it's not okay to be gay because of all the fucked up shit that happened in the past. And so it just was one of those things that kept getting perpetuated. And if you don't talk about it, it'll just ingrain itself into the culture. And that that's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And
because
so,
I really do think, like, especially in the black culture, like our sexuality is so tied to our masculinity, and if
mhm,
there's like some level of like because you were talking about sweet, like people being sweet. There's a level.
mhm,
If you're a masculine, if you're a man, you got to be hard, you got to be tough, and there's a level of like you can't like
yeah,
that too. Like for some reason, those two things can't mix. Like being masculine, but still being homosexual. Like and just
I think the problem is the hyper masculinity of it all is where
Mhm.
it really comes in. Because to be masculine doesn't it means to have these traits, but to be hyper masculine is to be what we were taught. We got to be rough and tough and never feel pain.
You
We got
got
to
to
take
portray those
bullets.
traits.
Yeah, you got to project those traits and make sure that everyone knows that you're masculine.
Yeah,
That's at least my take on what hypermasculinity is, and that can be a problem. And
yeah,
actually, hell, it is a problem. Our masculinity all the time, and the fact that we are told to downplay the fact that we feel emotions, when you're told over and over and over again that you're not supposed to talk about your emotions, you're not supposed to feel your emotions, that that causes a language barrier, an emotional language barrier between us and everyone else, or at least us
especially
and the
women.
more emotional. Yes, because women on average, now, I keep saying on average because I'm not talking about every single person here, but
Yeah,
women on average are much more emotionally like intelligent than us,
hmm
which that just by the baseline that already puts us at a disadvantage for communication and like commingling, co-living, coexisting.
yeah, because we don't have the, like you said, the language. We don't have the language to tell or to communicate how we're feeling to the opposite sex. You know, even in my relationships that I had, you know, I got so frustrated and I couldn't. It was so hard to communicate, you know, how I felt until I kind of sugarcoated stuff when it could have been as easy as like, hey, you know, you did this and it hurt my feelings. You know, I'm so afraid of like being vulnerable, even like with the people that I'm dating, you know, and just like
Mhm.
that disconnect I have of not being able to like really truly tell someone how I'm feeling. You know, it's
Mhm.
tough because I never flexed that muscle. I never worked that muscle. You know, it wasn't until we were adults that me and you and our brothers actually started telling each other, you know, how like what we're feeling and what we're doing. You know, imagine, you know, years over a decade of us just not really telling like talking to each other about our feelings. It was always just like video games and, you know, men shit, like going outside playing football, stuff like that. But we never really talked about our feelings like that. I talk to my friends all the time. Like I grew and like built that relationship. But even with my brothers, like there wasn't that learned behavior.
Mhm. We're not taught to we're not taught how to deal with our feelings, and that's step number one. Like how are you expected to be able to off the get go, especially if you understand the differences? Like how are you expected to be able to communicate like a normal person if you're not taught how to communicate? Just like how are you expected to do math without being taught how to do math, or how are you expected to learn to speak or do anything without being taught? It's a skill that everyone needs to be able to have, but it's a skill being purposefully like taken away from men, black men, just everyone, like little children. It's fucking man, it's
Yeah.
gross.
It's always get up. What you crying for? You ain't got nothing to cry about. Shake it off. You a boy. Be tough.
Maybe if you just rub a little bit of sand in your vagina and walk it off. I think some of the wrestling coaches used to say some shit like that.
Oh man, I got sayings for days, but yes, just so what so if you are a listener, you are someone that knows someone that may be dealing with these feelings of masculinity and sexuality, like how can you like what are some things that you can tell to help guide them to a better, more positive relationship with them with themselves?
As simple as it's gonna sound, the easiest route is often the right. You gotta talk about it. You gotta find those people that you can talk about it with. As scary as it is, like I'm a relatively outgoing introvert, and
Yeah.
so every time I talk to any audience, no matter how large or small, I'm always more or less dying on the inside. Now there are times that I get a little more comfortable, and so I feel a little less nauseous. But as scary as it is, you just have to reach out and talk to people.
Mhm.
Find those friends. There will be some failures. Yeah. Find the family member if you can. There may be one, although that could kind of burn you because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
amount of people who have been disowned. Thanks for having my back, mom and pops. The amount of people that have been disowned from their family because
Mhm.
they're anything but let shit. Lord help people who identify differently,
Mhm.
because there's just so much that we need to learn in this world, but you just got to talk about it. Uh, See a therapist if that helps. If that's the way to go, try it out. Try a couple different ones if you can. Find the one that's right for you. That's some advice from my friends, because they've had some not ideal therapists. Um, yeah, that's pretty much the advice I have mainly.
Oh, I would definitely agree with all those things. You know, definitely talking about it with any type of negative feelings that you are dealing with inside. You know, always talking about it and talking to the right people. Like you said as well, talking to the right people and finding that group, finding that village, finding your people. that will accept you for who you are and that you can, go to and talk to about these things, I think is very important. And, getting help and getting the right help if need be. There's definitely a bunch of different resources out there for anybody. So yeah, that's all I have today. Tyrell, thank you again for coming on. I know this was very, very nerve wracking, but I definitely appreciate you for being here. And shout out to everyone that watches. I guess I got to do this little spiel. YouTube. Make sure you go subscribe.
Like,
Share the
comment, share,
video.
subscribe, ring the bell to make sure that all the notifications are on, so you won't miss a thing. Also, it's just gonna take a little while for me to come down from this nerve-wracking thing. Sheesh.
Peace out, y'all.